How's it going, guys? This is Rio Maratov, photographer based in Tokyo. So during my last trip, when I went to Itou, Shizuoka Prefecture, I basically shot mostly with my GW690 Mark III. I shot the hotel, Hautoi Hotel, and also Omuro Mountain, which is actually a famous mountain within that region. Along with that, one of my followers commented saying, "Did you bring your Pentax 17 on this trip?" And I do not know how you found out, but yes, I did bring my Pentax 17 on this trip. Man, you're such a stalker, but I do not know what happened. But I actually did bring it for a different purpose, different reasons, and that is this video. For people who do not know, like 95% of you guys live outside of Japan. Around this Itou region, Shizuoka Prefecture, another famous location or area that I thought would be nice to photograph is Shaboten Koen. And if you guys do not know, Shaboten Koen is a famous zoo which is actually located in front of Mount Omuro. So I basically went there after I went to Mount Omuro with my GW690, and I thought instead of shooting with GW690, which is a really massive camera, I thought like I should not shoot this format at a zoo, and instead I basically shot with my Pentax 17, which I use a sort of like a sub camera for this sort of like video. And along with that, another thanks to my sort of like followers and subscriber, that I still had Cinestill 400D within my fridge, and this was actually a first, so thanks to you, Nguyen. This is again shot with Cinestill 400D, slammed into a half frame camera. This is actually my first time like shooting half frame with Cinestill 400D. Just slammed that in and just shot casually around that zoo. In addition to that, Shaboten Koen, although it is a zoo, it is sort of like well regarded as a zoo where the animals, not all of them, but a portion of animals are basically like set free, so to roam around. So you might get bugged by various types of creatures. But another reason why I thought it would be nice to shoot with the Pentax 17 is that along with the zoo, this sort of like Shaboten Koen itself, because it's a really large, fairly large like zoo, there's also a location dedicated for cactuses, actually plants actually, in a sort of like dry environment. So I thought it would be nice to photograph that area for you guys. Okay, so Cinestill 400D, I have to admit this is like my second time shooting it on 35mm. However, this time around shooting it with half frame. And normally when you shoot half frame cameras, anything I guess besides the Pentax 17, you have to take into account that half frames cameras, in my mind, I've used only one so far. You don't get that much out of that camera because back in the days the optical formula for half frame cams weren't that great. However, what sets the Pentax 17 apart with the, I guess, the predecessors is that because it was like made using current technology, and optically the Pentax 17 is by far, if I'm right, the best camera in terms of getting the absolute resolution from your image, because the, I don't know, the optical formula of the Pentax 17 seems to be really sharp in that sense, and if you get the autofocus correct, it will give you probably by far the best images. However, in my case, this problem kept arising, which is the mode dial kept shifting back and forth. It went into bulb mode, it went into program auto, it went into flash mode, and this is sort of like my, I guess, Pentax 17's issue. Some of my sort of like viewers mentioned this, that the Pentax 17 sort of like mode kept on changing. It's like really flimsy in a sense compared to the exposure compensation and the ISO dial. It might be my copy, or it might be everyone's might have the exact same issues, but I was starting to realize that when I stick the Pentax 17 in my pocket, when I take it out, because of the friction of my clothes and stuff like that, the mode dial kept on changing, which terrified me because when I wanted to use it sort of like a point and shoot, but I couldn't. And before I realized, it wasn't zone focusing, so some of my images went off in that sense. So yeah, that's one area to point out. And Cinestill 400D, you have to be careful shooting with this film stock because Nguyen, who passed this to me, said that the highlights get blown out really easily, so I have to be careful with it. And when you're shooting, I shot this like really early this year in the really cold season, so the contrast was rather strong in that sense. So some of the areas were blown out, and I have to be careful with that. And especially shooting with Cinestill 400D, you might have to be careful with like shooting it overexposed, because if you're overexposed, the highlights will get blown out easily. And as our eyes function, we basically view the image from the brightest area to the darkest area. So if you have too many areas that are too bright, it's harder for the viewers to tell what you shot. So I was basically battling against that. And especially another area to point out about where I shot the Shaboten Nguyen, especially the cactus area, is that typically cactuses survive or live in the what you call a dry area, so less humidity. And in a sense, not many people notice it, but when you shoot in drier climates, areas that have less humidity, you get a much more sharper image compared to shooting right now in Japan, where the humidity is like 70%, 80%, because the what you call the atmospheric, how should I say, pressure, or atmospheric, particles are floating around, because they're not condensed, they're like expanded. Light doesn't sort of like travel in a direct straight line. Thus, if the particles are expanded, it hits those particles, and you get a really sort of like hazy type of image, especially shooting in really humid environments, especially right now in Japan. However, the location that I shot, the cactus area, because it's like super dry, the images look crystal clear in my mind. So, I mean, I wish I could like shoot more of those, like, I should say, dry type of areas, but these areas typically don't exist, or else you have to like shoot during the winter season where the humidity is going down. So yeah, that was an area to point out. And honestly, I have to admit the cactus area of Shaboten Nguyen is by far one of the best locations that I've ever been to so far, because the, how should I say, the presentation, the types of flowers and but cactuses that were viewable were far what I expected, so it's actually a great location to photograph in my mind. So yeah, that's basically it on my talking about the Pentax 17, Cinestill 400D, and also the Shaboten Nguyen. If you're ever in this Itou region, it's like roughly 1 or 2 hours away from Tokyo. It is a great location to visit. There's only like 2-3 areas that you should check. So yeah, that's it on my sort of like journey around the Itou area. I'm thinking of making another video if I could scan it correctly, but see how that one goes. But yeah, that's basically it on my video of talking about Shaboten Nguyen and Cinestill 400D with a Pentax 17. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative. Hopefully this video's not too long. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to reply, and we will see you next time. Peace out.